shows the world and the United States already broke. This is a live look at the national debt clock as the amount of U.S. government spending grows out of control. Right now, it's over $13 trillion and counting, and your share of it is more than $42,000 per U.S. citizen. But it's not just an American problem.
No, it's not. It's global, and it's actually getting worse. Just last month, we showed you the rioting in the streets of Greece, and this is all because the government cut pensions and salaries and health care, other entitlements that Greeks have grown accustomed to. The cuts are the only hope of keeping Greece from coming apart financially. And Greece isn't alone. Other countries whose debt outweighs revenues are shown right here in red, and they include Italy. Look at this map. Iceland, Belgium, Japan. Other countries nearing the danger zone are shown in orange, and that includes France and Germany, the UK, and yes, the United States. And that has people here very upset.
The U.S. is heavily in debt, and I think that's probably our biggest problem is the fact that the U.S. is in debt. So if we're out of money, we're relying too much on borrowing.
The distribution of money may be a little out of whack right now.
Yeah, that we are out of money, and by the time that I retire, I don't believe that we will have Social Security.
Well, I think we're definitely out of control spending. I think all indicators are that, yeah, we are going to be broke soon if we don't stop the crazy spending that we're doing today.
There are many causes for this growing debt problem, but tonight we want to focus for a minute on spending. Our government has a lot of sacred cows. Entitlement programs like Social Security, Medicare, welfare. But the truth is the money will run out at some point. Look at this. For the first time ever this year, Social Security paid out more benefits than it collected in payroll taxes. $20 billion rolled into the government for Social Security, but about $30 billion is going out. Give it another 10 years and it's even more dramatic. The government will still be bringing in only about $20 billion, but it will be paying out $80 billion. $60 billion more than collected from payroll taxes. And check out this pie chart. As of this year, entitlement spending accounts for almost 60% of our federal budget. Yes, more than half the budget is spent on Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, welfare programs like food stamps and employment. And it's true. Yes, people need these things. How they need these things. But the question is, how long can it go on? By comparison, 18% of the budget goes to defense. Joining me now from our newsroom to sort through this mess is Tom Gatens. He is the field coordinator for Freedom Works and a Tea Party activist. Tom, are we making promises we can't keep, and the U.S. government's pushing our debt to the point that we'll soon owe more money than the total value of goods and services in this country? How dangerous is this predicament we face?
It is vitally important. There's no more important issue we face as a nation, John. Reality is that we've just surpassed our debt currently at the 14 point somewhat trillion dollars. We've already passed the 90% threshold of our gross domestic product. By most scales, that is the tipping point. By 2020, all of our federal revenue is going to go to Medicare, Social Security, Medicaid, interest on the debt, and the new Obamacare. That means there's going to be nothing left for the military, law enforcement, the courts, education, roads, federal pensions. We're bankrupt.
Tell me what's wrong with pensions here in this case. That's a great entitlement program. People work very hard for that. But somehow pensions are to some degree, are out of control. And I saw this one case, the New York City firefighter is going to get $242,000 a year. Now, he had an injury, but not a serious one. But 70% of the firefighters in New York are entitled to that kind of pension. What's wrong with that?
You know, unfortunately, John, that's one of the byproducts of the post-9/11, or the 9/11 era. And the reality is, our hearts go out to first providers, but the reality is we cannot sustain these pensions. Think about this. Most firemen retire in 20 years. That means for the life of your job or my job, where we work for 45 years in a productive environment, we're paying for 2.5 firemen or 2.5 policemen. It's just not sustainable. The reality is we need to get control on these pension programs because that's the elephant in the room that hasn't been touched.
We're strapped for cash now, right?
Yes, we are.
All right, where is it going to come from?
Well, there's those beautiful little printing presses that are taking place all over the place. It's fake. It's fraudulent. And sooner or later, the people who buy bonds today are not going to see a value in investing in the American bond. And then, boom, we go belly up.
This clock is running. How much more time do we have before this thing bottoms out and we're just all left high and dry here?
Well, in the next 5 years, we're going to start seeing the significant impacts of this huge deficit spending. But by 2020, as I pointed out, we're not going to have money left over for those constitutionally required things we spend money on. Roads and defense, law enforcement, courts. And here's the bad part. The more money government takes out of the working sector, stymies investment in future jobs. We want to create jobs. You do not create jobs by increasing taxes. It's never been done, and it never will be.
Well, we're facing a very unsettling future because of all of this, and we thank you for your expertise and for coming in here tonight, Tom.
Thank you, John.
Okay, so isn't that interesting? Everything that at least I've been forecasting on Facebook and elsewhere is exactly what you just heard right there. And, which is in another one of my videos, I'm going to bring this up anyways, because it's definitely important here. And let's see here. Okay, this is from the IRS. I pulled this from the IRS.gov website, public data. I just got it, I don't know, 2-3 weeks ago when I made the video on YouTube about it. And I was focusing on business income tax, which is the most important income tax probably collected. I think it's the largest one, I believe, on the chart. But anyways, business income tax, 2008, $354,000. 2009, $225. And these are the quarters. Look at the last one, 130 billion. You can look at the other charts from 2008 and 2007, and all these numbers are looking real good for all these different quarters and whatnot. It's looking real good. Until 2008 starts slacking off, then 2009 comes around, and I said to myself, I can't wait until 2010 comes around after tax season and they publish their reports. And I was looking at this number on every one of these things. Number 5, $130 billion is all they collected out of businesses. So let's go back a year. Here's that same section. $300 billion. It's a significant increase. Let's go to the year before that, 2007. $368 billion. Same section. Let's go back to that first one, shall we? $130 billion. Row 5 here. 2009. So, that guy you just saw on TV is saying, well, in 10 years we're going to be in trouble. Even in 5 years we're going to be in trouble. None of these things can be sustained. What he doesn't know and what he's not talking about is that also on top of all this mess, unemployment is rising. It will continue to rise and get even worse. Therefore, less taxes are collected. Therefore, less money is put into the United States of America or sucked out of it through the government. And it ain't going to be 10 years. It's going to be like a year or 2 years probably before we reach that level. They've already upped the national debt. In 1970, it was our first $1 trillion was finally achieved. After 200 years of American history, roughly, 1970, up $1 trillion. 30 years later, it was $6 trillion. And then Bush took office. Or matter of fact, I think it was $3 trillion. And then when he took office, it went from 3 to 6 trillion to 9 trillion while he was in office. And while he was basically leaving and Obama was stepping in, they upped it again to like 11 trillion or whatever it was. Then they had to up it again a year later to 12 trillion. And then a month later after they just rose it, oh, we got to do it again. By February, if we don't raise the debt ceiling again, the money's gone. So they passed the law, Congress did it, and now our debt ceiling is 14-something trillion. And it's going to be cleaned out here shortly anyways. So take all these things into effect. Take the oil rig disaster, all these natural disasters picking up steam. I'm watching flood after flood after flood all over the place. The human species is in big trouble. And if you don't have a food storage for at least 3 months for your family, you don't have a gun to protect your stuff, silver or gold, specifically silver because it's easier to afford and it's way underpriced, you will be able to sustain something while this collapse takes place. and a bicycle with some spare tires and spare tubes, because you will be needing that. You can forget about your car and your gas because it's going to $6 to $8